Hello and welcome to Venturing Beyond. Today we have with us Myria Antony, Development Manager at Empower, the Emerging Markets Foundation. Empower is a not-for-profit organization that aims to help the local organizations in emerging market countries who are working to improve conditions in their communities, especially concerning the education, health, and livelihood of at-risk youth. They do this by providing the local organizations with grants and other resources. Myria studied economics and finance from the University of Bristol and graduated with a master's in management at the London School of Economics and Political Science. Following this, Myria has had experience in several industries, which I'm very excited to hear about, including consulting, brand strategy, marketing strategy, sales and business development, and so on. Myria, welcome. I'm so glad to have you on the AdventuRISE podcast, and I'm really excited for our upcoming conversation. So how are you doing?
Thanks so much, Nimi. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be on your podcast. I'm doing well, thanks. I'm currently in London, which is going through a heat wave. So a bit hot, but apart from that, doing really well.
It's fantastic. Fantastic. You have such like a wide array of experiences. So tell me, have I missed anything?
No, you got it right. In the professional sense, yes, I've had a wide array of experiences. Yeah, I moved from the corporate world to the nonprofit world quite recently, so that was the most recent experience. But yeah, I've had a lot of different career paths. So yeah, it's been great.
Fantastic. Actually, like I was looking at all your educational background, and you seem to have traveled a lot. That must be a pretty interesting experience, right?
Yeah, it was great. I actually moved around to about 10 schools while I was growing up. So I've lived across the world. So I was born in India, but we also lived not only all over India, but also abroad. So I lived in New Zealand, I lived in Singapore, I lived in Dubai, I lived in the UK, the US. Obviously now the UK is home for me. But yeah, I've lived all over the world, and I went to 10 different schools. So moved around a lot as a child, which has its positives, but also there are certain negatives there as well, as you can imagine.
Yeah, I can imagine that. Do you mind sharing some of your experiences and like what differences did you observe, even just in your educational like institutions? There must have been quite a few differences, right?
Yeah, it's very different. So I think when going previous to university, moving around at a young age to different schools across the world is it's great. You meet lots of people, you get to experience new countries and the culture, and it teaches you to be a little more adaptable and agile. It teaches you you have to keep starting over. None of my schools were longer than a year or 2 years, and so it teaches you, to make friends. And the positive is I have friends all across the world, so that's really great. The negative is you don't have that stable kind of school environment that you grew up with, friends that you've had for 20 years, and that's always hard because you move so much and you have to rebuild and you start again, but in some way, it taught me a lot. And so yeah, it was a great experience. In terms of university, I studied in the UK, but also the US. And I have to say, I loved the US. I loved Cornell. I was there for a very short period, but I absolutely loved it. And I think it was so different, contrasting the two education approaches. So yeah, it was great.
Really, what did you find different about that?
So I found the UK very academic and very theoretical, whereas I found the US very practical. So also in terms of campuses, I was at LSE, which was in the middle of a city. Obviously great to be in London, but you don't get that feeling of a campus and you're living with people and you form a network, which I did in Cornell. Like we were living on a campus, it was secluded in the middle of nowhere in upstate New York. Ithaca was gorgeous. It was vast. It was absolutely beautiful. The surrounding, countryside, but also just, that wide network that you build in the US. I think it's not replicable anywhere else. That being said, I also loved my time at the LSE, and I was in Bristol for my undergrad. And Bristol was a little more campusy because you're in a, kind of in a city, and you're living within, within a campus. Unlike London is very much like New York. It's a big city and full of buildings, and I didn't get the campus vibe at London. But then I also loved the contrast between, going to school in the middle of Holborn, Covent Garden, and you get that experience, right? So that's really great.
Yeah. I can imagine. I'm curious, like, what made you experiment later on in life? Like, there must have been, a reason or something to push you towards that direction.
I think in the last couple of years, during my time I was at Deloitte most recently, but also over the pandemic last year, I think you shut us all in and you have more time to think. And so, I did this three-circle model where you look at, what skills do you have, what would you really like to do, what are you really passionate about, and what could you do that you earn a living and you sustain your lifestyle, but at the same time try and do something you really want to do. And so I decided to take a bit of a risk and leave the corporate world and venture into the world I'm in right now, which is the nonprofit world. So I feel like that's a bit of an experiment, one I hope really works out because I love what I'm doing at the moment. Apart from that, I was gonna say I didn't do much experimenting. I did experimenting in the sense in the corporate world. Like, I tried different internships, so over different summers, even though I was in financial services, or I did try different companies. I tried different roles. I tried consulting, I tried sales and marketing. I tried strategy. When I graduated from the LSE, I was at a boutique consulting firm where I did strategy and analytics. And so I did try different things over the years, just to see, one, at the time it felt right, and at the time it felt like this is what I really wanted to do. And so there were different paths that I took.
Backtracking just a little bit, you mentioned earlier that you were studying STEM, right? And then suddenly you transitioned to finance and business. What happened?
I really wanted to be a doctor. From a very young age. I don't know what it was. I think it was a little bit of laziness, I want to say, and a little bit of, I can't do this for 10 years. And I don't think I would have been good at it. So I was a little scared at the time. And so I transitioned.
Going back a little bit, when you interned at the boutique consulting firm, what kind of resources did you use to find that opportunity, and even later on?
Yeah, so in the US, you have this whole kind of career counselor path. You don't really have it in the UK. So it was a lot of my own work. There were some resources I remember, but not very much. And so it was word of mouth. It was networking. It was going for events and career fairs. I remember going for so many career fairs. I think it's a lot easier now with LinkedIn and trying to find a connection or trying to find someone or it was a lot of it was my own research.
I can definitely see how LinkedIn would help people nowadays, but at sometimes I just feel like there's an oversaturation in LinkedIn when there's so many people and so many opportunities that may or may not be true, and there's a little bit of a disconnect, I feel. So maybe we still attend career fairs, but maybe that's the way.
I think that's still, I know the LSE has a few that I used to go for in the last couple of years. I think it's always good to network and try and find someone, even if you just use LinkedIn to try and find a connection at the organization that you would like, just to find out more about it, have a chat with that coffee or chat with that person. And actually, so I looked at LinkedIn jobs, and that's actually how I came across one of my most recent role. And so I think that LinkedIn jobs is actually really useful. I know a couple of people who have used it. I think it's really about networking. I have a friend who just moved to Canada, and just she managed to get a job, and I was like, how? And she was like, just networking, finding school alumni, finding alumni from your college and your networks. And it's all about just making a connection. And it's, I know it's oversaturated and every podcast talks about relationships and people, but it is about finding the right people, and not all the time. Sometimes you have to invest more, but you just have to, that one person can make such a difference. So, yeah.
How did you prepare for the job, for like the interview process at that time, or even for your more recent roles? Was there any process that you regularly stuck to and found really beneficial?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of preparing, but also being really authentic. Like I did a bit of preparation. So I would do background research into the firm. I would really look at the role. I would look at what does the role require? What skills do I have? How do I bridge the transition between what skills I have, what I don't have? How can I make it up? How can I have that growth? Adam Grant talks about, no, I can't remember who it is, or Simon Sinek, one of the two, talks about growth, infinite mindset. And so how you have to like have that curiosity to learn and to want to understand what are you lacking, and but also show like very authentically, like you don't have to come across as everything. I think it's a little bit is around, I'll give you an example of my most recent role. I was really, I loved the job description, and I loved the company, the foundation that I'm at. I thought the purpose was amazing. And I moved obviously from consulting. There were a few overlapping skills, but I think my boss actually said to me what came across was my passion for it. I think, and I don't know I'm still new to the sector, but it's all about showing that commitment to learn, having that intellectual curiosity. I think that's probably the most important. But preparing, I would do a lot of reading. I did a lot of reading before any interviews that I had. Thoroughly research the organization, the people I'm meeting, what I want to say, structure your answers, look at potential ways to do that, but also don't over prepare. I think it's a lot about just being yourself and being really authentic, because I think everyone looks at, oh, we should use STAR method or this method and that. I'm like, no, just go be yourself. You're going to work at these organizations. They're going to figure out if you don't have the skills or if you're making it up. And so you kind of just have to be very authentic and honest. And I think that really comes across.
Yeah.
This podcast is brought to you by AdventuRISE, an online platform that provides one-on-one industry mentorship and career guidance tools.
Are you interested in connecting with experienced professionals and industry experts to learn more about your field of interest? Then AdventuRISE is a platform for you.
Follow AdventuRISE on LinkedIn at ADVENTURISE or on Instagram at ADVENTU.RISE. Or join our Discord community and our platform to help you find the mentors best suited to your needs.
For more details, check the link in our description. With the different jobs that you've taken, you must have made like a couple of mistakes or had some interesting situations, right?
I think one is, I think early on I tried to pretend that I knew everything, and I think that was a little bit of a challenge. And so I think it's reaching out and asking and showing, that you want to learn and that you don't know all the answers. I think I did make a mistake at one of the places I worked in. I don't think I formed the best relationships. And I think I should have invested more time and energy to nurture and grow those relationships. And I think as you grow older, you learn the skill of diplomacy. I think I used to be very hell-bent on achievement, and I still am, and excellence, but I think I was a little cutthroat and aggressive back in the day. And I think that works with some people, but it doesn't always work. And I find the way to actually get things done and the way to actually succeed. And honestly, I want to be a better person at the end of the day. And I've worked a lot on myself over the last couple of years. And I think it's to understand that everyone is coming from a different angle. I think it's to be, a little more understanding, a little more compassionate, and to use a little more diplomacy, even if the other person isn't always right, but to frame it in a constructive way rather than a negative way works better. And so that's one thing that I'm really trying to do now.
Yeah. Gotcha. I mean, they always say hindsight is 2020, right?
Yeah. Wish I had done all of this back in the day. That would have made life a lot easier.
Back in the day.
I know. It's just everyone. I'm okay. Let me just say, I'm only 33. I don't know why I keep saying back in the day.
But back in the day, did you have any really interesting experiences that you now think was like a once in a lifetime opportunity or experience?
The opportunity to go to Cornell was I just remember getting that email and I was ecstatic. The most recent highlight I want to say is making the transition from the corporate world to the nonprofit world. I thought it'd come much later on in life because I'm surrounded by capitalism all around me. But I think it was a different sense of accomplishment. Right now, what I'm doing is, I am ambitious in a different way. I want to change the world, as idealistic as that sounds. And every day, I think I hope that I'm taking a step towards that.
Yeah. I have a bunch of questions I want to ask you about Empower, but right before that, I just want to ask you, for the people who are listening who might be interested in the corporate world, in strategy, in consulting, in finance, what advice do you have? Like, how would they go about getting into that kind of position and industry?
Consulting is quite analytical in some ways and process driven, and it's like, why do you want to do it? What is your kind of I really want to do it because I'd get to meet different clients, I'd get different experiences. It's a great stepping stone. It teaches you a lot. I'd say really look at your why. In terms of getting a job, I think it's a lot about it's hard. I have to say, it really builds your resilience when you apply to you have to throw in 50 to 100 stones to get one back. And so it's really spending time doing those applications. And it's not just copy paste, it's literally spending time thinking about the answers, thinking about why you want to do it, networking with the people at these firms, understanding what the company is. Does it align with your values? Are you just doing it because you wanted to get into a big firm? I think so. Consulting, strategy, analytics, they're all great kind of fields to be in, and they're all different. So I loved consulting because, one, you get to meet different people, you get to do different innovative things with each organization or each firm that you're working in. You learn a lot. So there's a lot of learning in terms of processes, in terms of challenges, in terms of relationship management with clients. There's also, you have to use a little bit of EQ and IQ, which is you have to, when you're managing clients, there's a little bit of both that comes in. And so my advice is really think about why, think about what you want to do, and then talk to a lot of people, find out what their experience is in that field or in that company, and then figure out a way to go about doing it. I'd also attend a lot of career fairs. I'd look at different things. There's so many resources online. I'd look at that. I'd look at alumni. I'd look at LinkedIn. I do a lot of reading and research into these places before getting into it.
When you look back at it right now, is there anything that you're really glad that you tried out, even in the corporate field? And what about the people that you met, maybe mentors or helped you reach where you are right now?
Yeah, and I think I really enjoyed my time in the corporate world. I met really interesting people. I also I worked in India for a little bit, where I worked in India for 2 years, and that was sales and marketing. That was a different type of skill. I think in all my jobs, this common skill was you have to, if you're in this field, you have to learn how to do business development and sell, because you're selling something, whether it's an idea or a project, or right now, a social impact or philanthropy, whatever it is, so you have to really learn to work with people, and you have to learn to sell. you have to learn, I think EQ is a really important skill that you really have to learn. It's less about being book smart anymore. It's all around, how can you make an impact? How can you make a difference? What are you selling? How good is your idea?
Yeah. I think there are a few of my friends who are interested in consulting and going into strategy, that kind of in an industry. And a big thing that I hear about a lot is like imposter syndrome and feeling like, how would you be consulting for someone right out of college, what are your thoughts on that?
I think I still have, someone told me the other day that I have imposter syndrome because I still think I'm not good at certain things. I think it's really having the confidence that anybody, when you get, you are going to be thrown in the deep end, but you're also going to be surrounded by really, like you said, sorry, I didn't address the point of mentors all there. You're going to be surrounded by people. They're not going to just throw you in the deep end. You will have a team that you can work with, and you will have great mentors. Both I found a mentor actually outside of work who was great, like a coach. It's important to have a challenge circle, because sometimes you get people just tell you what you want to hear. And I think, you need to have people who challenge you. So I think coming right out and joining, a consulting firm, especially in strategy, one of my best friends works in strategy, and I can see how much she's grown. I can see, how she's gotten so much confidence. She's just, even for me, like, working, being thrown in the deep end, you learn a different skill set. You learn how to do things. There's always a way to learn how to do things, and you're surrounded by people who will teach you, and everyone is very willing to teach you. I was scared to ask and say that I don't know something, and I did, and I ended up learning a lot. And so you will get people who are more than happy to teach you, but you have to be honest and say, I don't know everything, but I want to learn how to do this. I want to you have to also put in the hours. I think that's one thing you have to do at a young age. I think it's really putting in the hours to just, especially in your 20s. My brother's in his 20s right now, and he works 24/7. And that, I'm not, I'm all for work-life balance, but I think when you're in your 20s, you have to it's more work than balance. As you get older, it's right now there is a lot of work-life balance. I'm trying to incorporate that, but I think in my 20s, I think it's a lot of just putting in the hard work. You have to do that early on to get to later, to get to the stage where you're comfortable later on.
Yeah. As you transition to the not-for-profit world, like, what kind of differences did you observe, and what was your initial thought like when you shifted? It must have been a bit hard.
In the nonprofit world, it's much more around coming together for the cause. I find people much nicer, and I find actually the people in this world are so smart. I think much smarter than otherwise, because they're literally PhDs, or they have they're very well versed, or they've been in the field for so long that they know what's going on. And so it's amazing to learn from really smart people, also really innovative. We work with some really innovative organizations, and I find some of my colleagues doing things in different ways. And so it's a very innovative and a very it's a very different world. It's a much kinder world. It's a much more compassionate world, and it's much more coming together for a good cause. That being said, it's very challenging. I'm a fundraiser, and I'm in the development space, and so it is always, I thought it would be a lot easier, but it is challenging. You just have to, like I said, build your resilience muscle to keep going even when times are hard.
Yeah, I can definitely imagine that. I worked at an orphanage nearby called Hope Foundation, and it was really, really fun. I led a project for building resilience, but through activities, because we can't really expect children of 10 to 12-year-olds to sit still and listen to you, right? You have to be able to convey the message in a way that will be able to accept. And I think there are so many interesting challenges very different from the corporate world that you find in the nonprofit world.
We have a huge amount of support from our board and from our, we've got organizations we've worked with for a long time. So we're very lucky, but it is, as a new fundraiser, it is a challenge. Yeah.
Yeah. As you started working in Empower, what attracted you to it in the beginning, like Empower specifically, and what are you doing currently in your role?
Yeah, so what attracted me to it is the people and the mission. So the mission is to empower the most vulnerable and marginalized young people. And there's a certain focus on adolescent girls between the ages of 10 and 24. And we work across 15 different emerging markets. So India, Africa, Latin America, Southeast Asia, China, Turkey, and Russia. And so it was really putting together empowering young girls and young women, as well as emerging markets, because obviously I'm from India. And so those were the two biggest attractions to me. It was really around the mission. And it was, I saw very early on, it was a great team. It was a team that I wanted to be part of. It was, my colleagues are all amazing. And they do some really innovative and really amazing work to empower the most vulnerable people. And so that was really it. And so I was like, yeah, want to do this, want to go help and change the world in some way.
Yeah, fantastic. Do you think like you could share any projects that you've been working on currently, or?
Yeah, so we do a lot of very interesting work. We did one very interesting project in India with the UK's Foreign and Commonwealth Development Office, and they funded an adolescent girl participatory research project where we trained 23 young girls from the communities in the north of India, and they went to interview around 153 other girls, and they presented the results back to us. And that was the most heartwarming moment I think I've experienced in years, just to like be on this webinar where they're presenting, what are the needs? Because we believe that girls themselves should tell us, like we can sit here and plan their lives, but we feel like it's more around inclusivity and getting girls to tell us what they really want, getting these young people who are on the margins to be, inform us. And so it was really interesting to get their insights into what's really impacting them. How has COVID impacted them? How do we build a post-pandemic world for them? What would they really like to see, in terms of inclusive education, in terms of economic livelihoods, in terms of safe and healthy lives? How can we help them? And so that was a really, really great project. How we work is we provide grants. So we work with around 100 plus grantee partners. We call them grantee partners. These are local grassroots organizations across the 15 different emerging markets, India being one of our large markets. And we work with very innovative grantee partners in India. And so one is providing them with financial assistance, so providing them with grants. And the other way is really capacity building, so helping them scale and grow, helping the organization with strategy and fundraising. And we also create learning exchanges around the world. So something that's worked in India, we'll take and replicate it in Ghana. This is what we did with one of our non-traditional livelihoods programs in India, where young women were taught to drive and taught to go into fields that are typically dominated by men. And so we took that learning exchange and model and we replicated that in Ghana, with one of our partners, and that worked really well. Wow. We also use, some of our grantee partners are amazing in other countries. So in South Africa, we use sport. So we have a program that uses surfing as a way to teach the most hardest hit young people how to increase their resilience and mental health and well-being. And then we use boxing as a way to do that. So there are different ways to engage young people, and some of our partners are amazing and they find such innovative ways to do that. Right now, the most important, though, is education, because as you probably know, the pandemic has exacerbated the divide, particularly for young girls and women. And so it's providing them with digital tools, helping girls get back into school, providing an education for them. And it's also around economic livelihoods, helping them with employability and financial literacy and job readiness skills. And the third strand is our healthy, safe and healthy lives, which is all around preventing gender-based violence, providing safe spaces for them, educating girls on sexual and reproductive health, which is a big part of what we do. And yeah, the work is very interesting. So anyone who wants to do social impact or philanthropy or help us, your support would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah. I'm just curious, but what is a typical day in the nonprofit world? And if you could compare it to what you used to experience in the corporate world, I'm just curious to see the differences and how you dealt with that.
There is no typical day in the nonprofit. In the consulting world, you're on a project, you're either, you go from client to client and there's a process. So you follow a process and you follow a template and you just replicate that. You find different ways to do it for different clients, but it's very process driven. The nonprofit world is very much more innovative, I think. So a typical day is, I manage existing relationships as well as try and find new relationships. So I talk to different people, so many different people on a daily basis. And these could be, sometimes, our board is introducing me to people, or it's like for my own research, or it's cold calling and like just picking up the phone. It's funny how you don't get an answer till you ask. And so it's funny how I've really learned to ask and not be shy and just be bold about it. I've actually, I've approached a lot of kind of high profile people, and it's funny, I get a reply. Everyone around is shocked that I get a reply, and it's just finding a way to do it. You have to find an aim. A typical day is talking to many people. Obviously the emails never stop, so you kind of like always kind of doing that at the same time, but it's trying to find more innovative ways and how to get more people on board with Empower, to be honest, to how to get us, how to fundraise, how to get people interested in what we do, getting the word out there. That's really some of the things I do on a daily basis.
I'd love to hear about like any people that you met that you maybe still are in touch with, or just in general, maybe someone who inspired you and motivated you to keep going. And did they influence like how you make decisions and how you view problems? Like, what is your general process like?
Yeah, 100%. Adam Grant is my most favorite person who doesn't personally tell me. I listen to his podcast and read his books, but I love the whole rethinking decisions. I love how you have to not have to, but sometimes it's good to rethink things. And so the people I listen to, Brene Brown, how it's okay to give yourself a bit of slack, how we need to cultivate authenticity and compassion, and how we need to reset ourselves, and we need to there's a lot of motivational speakers out there. The power of vulnerability, she talks about, and so a lot of these people influence how I want to be. I think more than anything, it's the person I want to be and how I want to do things. And so a lot of them at the moment are really inspirational that way. Scott Galloway is someone I absolutely have loved over the last couple of years, especially during the pandemic. He kept me company on my walks with listening to him. And I think he's brilliant in terms of his business acumen. He's an entrepreneur. He's a New York University professor, but also he has this algebra of happiness. And I love that because I think that really inspires me and motivates me. So yeah.
Would you like to share any announcement or promotion related to Empower?
I'd love to share I can send you our global storybook if you and links to our website. I would love to have anybody who's interested in girls. We have some India funds right now where we're trying to build for young adolescent girls in India in particular, and there's a huge need. And so if anyone's able to get involved, that would be great. We also have a campaign that we're running in September. It's a 4-week challenge. I can share the website for that. But to raise as much money as possible to go to all our grantee partners across the globe. As we build back from the pandemic, it's really important for people, especially those in our circles who are doing well, to give back. And so I think, even if it's a small amount, anything, any little amount helps. So yeah, I would love to have, anyone who's interested in the cause to get involved with us, or to donate, or to get involved with our campaign. And that would be really great and really beneficial to us.
Fantastic. I'll share the links in our description. And yeah, thank you so much, Myria. It was really great talking with you.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, it was really fun. Thank you so much. I love what you're doing, and I really appreciate being involved with you.